The alien princess had never been called sweetie. Now she can't stop thinking about him. It all started on a mundane Thursday evening, the kind where the stars seem extra bright, as if signaling that something extraordinary was about to unfold. I was wandering through the bustling marketplace of Zenara Prime, a vibrant alien world where the air shimmered with iridescent colors and vendors sold everything from floating fruits to crystals that hummed with energy. I wasn't supposed to be here. Earth had strict no-contact policies with off-world civilizations, but curiosity and my disastrous career as a freelance space trader had landed me smack in the middle of this alien bazaar. The marketplace was a sensory overload. Exotic scents wafted through the air. Alien languages created a symphony of unfamiliar sounds, and the architecture defied human understanding with its organic curves and bioluminescent panels. I was just trying to get by, negotiating prices on some rare tech parts with a vendor whose species I couldn't identify, when suddenly the crowd parted like a curtain, revealing her. The bustling noise seemed to fade into background whispers as every eye turned toward the approaching figure. She was stunning not just by human standards, but by any standards you could think of. Her skin was a smooth, luminous blue with subtle patterns that looked like constellations running along her arms. These weren't tattoos or markings, but something that seemed to pulse gently with her heartbeat, as if starlight flowed through her very veins. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, glowed with a gentle violet light that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages yet sparkled with youthful curiosity. Her hair cascaded down her back in waves of silver that caught the ambient light like liquid metal, moving with an otherworldly grace that made it seem alive. She wore robes that seemed to be woven from the fabric of space itself, deep purples and blues that shifted and changed as she moved. An unmistakable aura of royalty surrounded her. This was Princess Lysura of the Nanari, the ruling family of Zenara Prime. I was too stunned to speak at first. People whispered and pointed, and I could feel their judgmental eyes. Humans weren't exactly welcome here, and aliens were supposed to keep to themselves, especially their royalty. The marketplace, which had been alive with chatter and commerce moments before, now hummed with tension and curiosity. But then she approached me directly, ignoring the disapproving looks from her retinue and the gathered crowd. Her movements were graceful yet purposeful, and when she stopped just a few feet away from me, I caught a scent like moonlight on water, something ethereal and impossible to describe. She smiled at me then, a small, warm smile that felt like sunlight breaking through a cloudy day. In that moment, all the politics, all the rules, all the barriers between our worlds seemed to dissolve. My heart hammered against my ribs, and before I could think, before I could stop myself, the words tumbled out. "Hey, sweetie," I blurted out, immediately regretting my casual human greeting in such a formal alien setting. She blinked, clearly surprised by my informal address. For a moment, I thought I had committed some terrible diplomatic faux pas that might start an intergalactic incident. But then something wonderful happened. Her cheeks flushed a deeper shade of blue, an alien blush that was somehow both foreign and completely familiar. "Yes, darling," she replied softly, her voice like music. We both laughed then, a little awkward, a little genuine. That moment shattered the invisible walls between us, creating an unexpected bond that would change everything. Over the next few days, I found myself inexplicably drawn to Lysura, and remarkably, she seemed equally drawn to me. What had started as a chance encounter in the marketplace had evolved into something neither of us had expected. She was curious about Earth, about human quirks, and about me, a nobody from a tiny blue planet on the outer rim of known space. Despite the obvious complications of our different species and social standings, we began spending time together. At first, our meetings were brief and public, chance encounters in the marketplace or formal introductions at diplomatic gatherings that I somehow found myself invited to. But gradually, they became more private and meaningful. We wandered through neon-lit streets that pulsed with alien energy, the buildings themselves seeming to breathe with bioluminescent life. The architecture of Zenara Prime was unlike anything on Earth, structures that grew rather than being built, with organic curves that seemed to flow like frozen music. Street vendors sold delicacies that challenged every human conception of food, and the air itself tasted different, charged with possibilities. Together we shared strange foods that sometimes made my human digestive system protest, and debated everything from star navigation techniques to human music. I had brought a small collection of Earth songs on my personal device, and watching Lashura's reaction to everything from classical symphonies to modern pop was endlessly entertaining. She was particularly fascinated by the concept of rhythm, which apparently translated differently across species, despite her royal duties, which included daily councils with planetary leaders, ceremonial appearances, and the constant pressure of maintaining diplomatic relations with dozens of star systems. She was refreshingly down to earth, or as close to it as an alien princess could be. "You humans are funny," she said once, laughing as I tried to teach her how to use a human coffee machine I'd managed to smuggle into her palace. The device looked ridiculously primitive next to the Ninari's advanced food synthesizers, but she was genuinely interested in understanding human customs. "And you aliens are inscrutable," I shot back, laughing as she attempted to operate the simple brewing mechanism with the same careful precision she probably used for operating starship controls. But beneath the jokes and cultural exchanges, something deeper was growing. Our conversations became longer, more intimate. She told me about the loneliness of royal life, how every relationship was analyzed for political implications, how she sometimes felt more like a symbol than a person. I shared my own struggles, the failure of my trading business, my sense of not belonging anywhere, the way I'd always felt like an outsider, even on my own planet. We discovered that despite coming from worlds millions of miles apart, we shared similar dreams, fears, and hopes. She wanted to see her people prosper and find peace among the stars. I wanted to find my place in the universe, to matter somehow. Neither of us had expected to find understanding in someone so different, yet so fundamentally similar. Late one evening, as we sat in her private garden watching the twin moons rise over Zenara Prime's crystalline mountains, she turned to me with an expression I was beginning to recognize, that mixture of royal composure and genuine vulnerability that made her so captivating. "I never expected this," she said quietly, her violet eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Neither did I admitted, feeling the weight of the growing connection between us. A fragile bond was forming, one that neither of us fully understood, but both of us treasured. Zenara Prime was peaceful, but the galaxy wasn't. As our friendship deepened, I began to understand the complex web of alliances and rivalries that governed interstellar politics. The Ninari were respected and influential, but they had enemies, other star systems that viewed their growing power with suspicion and fear. Tensions simmered between several major civilizations, and the Ninari's rivals began to see Lashura's growing friendship with an Earthling as something more threatening than a simple diplomatic curiosity. They saw it as a dangerous alliance that could shift the balance of power, potentially giving the Ninari access to Earth's resources and strategic position. I started noticing changes in how people looked at me in the marketplace. What had once been curious stares became hostile glares. Conversations stopped when I approached, and several vendors who had previously been willing to trade with me suddenly found reasons to close their stalls early. The political implications of my presence were becoming impossible to ignore. Lisora tried to shield me from the worst of it, but even she couldn't completely protect me from the growing tensions. Her own advisors began pressuring her to end our association, warning that it was becoming a liability for the royal family and potentially dangerous for interplanetary relations. "They're scared," she explained to me one evening as we walked through the palace gardens, staying in the shadows to avoid being seen together. "Not of you specifically, but of what you represent: change, the unknown, a shift in how things have always been done." The threat became real one evening as we walked under the twin moons, taking a route through the outer districts that we thought would be safe from prying eyes. The attack came without warning, a group of armed mercenaries emerging from the shadows between the bioluminescent trees that lined the pathway. "Get down," Lisura shouted, her royal composure slipping as she pushed me behind a glowing crystal wall. The formerly diplomatic princess I knew transformed instantly into someone trained for survival, her movements quick and decisive. Blaster shots ricocheted off the crystalline structures around us, sending sparks flying in brilliant cascades of light. The mercenaries were professionals, their weapons were military grade, and their tactics suggested they'd done this before. This wasn't a random mugging or a crime of opportunity. This was a coordinated assassination attempt. But Lisura moved with surprising agility, ducking and weaving between cover while activating some kind of emergency beacon. Her royal guards arrived just in time, their appearance so swift and coordinated that it was clear they'd been monitoring our location the entire time. The firefight was brief but intense, the guards' superior training and equipment quickly overwhelming the attackers. Later, safe inside the palace, Lysura looked at me with worry etched across her beautiful features. The attack had shaken her, more than she wanted to admit, not because of the physical danger, but because of what it represented. "This isn't just about you," she said quietly, her voice carrying a weight I'd never heard before. "It's about what you represent: Earth's potential involvement in our politics, hope for peace between our peoples, and my people's future." I nodded, feeling the full weight of the situation settling on my shoulders. I'd never signed up to be part of an intergalactic political game, but here I was, caught in the middle of forces far larger than myself. My presence wasn't just complicating Lysura's life, it was potentially putting her entire world at risk. The galaxy suddenly felt much more dangerous, and our growing relationship much more complicated. Days turned into weeks, and despite the dangers, our bond continued to deepen. Every stolen moment felt precious, weighted with the knowledge that forces beyond our control were working to keep us apart. The palace had become both sanctuary and prison, safe from external threats but also isolating us from the normal world. Outside, with every secret meeting, every quiet conversation in hidden corners of the palace, I realized I was falling for her. It wasn't just her otherworldly beauty or her royal status that attracted me, it was her intelligence, her compassion, her strength in the face of impossible pressures. She carried the weight of her entire civilization's future on her shoulders. Yet she still found time to laugh at my terrible jokes about human culture. The political situation continued to deteriorate. Reports came in daily of increased military movements in neighboring star systems, and Lysura's advisors grew more insistent that she distance herself from me. The message was clear: our relationship was becoming a catalyst for potential galactic conflict. But instead of pulling away, Lysura seemed to grow more determined. She spent long hours in council meetings, working with her advisors and diplomatic corps to find solutions that wouldn't require sacrificing our connection. I watched her navigate the complex web of interstellar politics with a skill that reminded me why she was destined to rule. One evening, as we watched the stars from her private balcony, a ritual that had become precious to both of us, she turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. Her violet eyes were shining with a mixture of determination and vulnerability that took my breath away. "I want you to marry me," she said, her words carrying the weight of both personal desire and political necessity. I choked on my drink, nearly spilling the exotic Nanari beverage she'd been trying to get me to appreciate. "Wait, what?" I sputtered, certain I'd misunderstood something crucial in translation. "It's tradition," she explained, a faint blush returning to her cheeks, that endearing alien flush that I'd grown to love. "When two peoples wish to form an alliance, when they want to ensure peace and understanding between their worlds, the bond must be sealed through marriage. And I want it to be you." Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. This wasn't just a romantic proposal, it was a political strategy, a diplomatic solution, and a personal declaration all wrapped into one. By marrying me, she would be creating a formal alliance between Earth and the Nanari, making our relationship a source of strength rather than vulnerability. I looked out at the swirling galaxies visible from her balcony, the vast expanse of space that separated our worlds, and then back at her. The proposal was crazy, impossible by any rational measure. I was a failed space trader from a small planet, and she was royalty, destined to lead one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. But my heart said otherwise. In the weeks we'd spent together, she had become more than just an alien, princess, or a political figure. She had become someone I genuinely cared about, someone whose happiness mattered to me as much as my own. The idea of spending my life with her, of being part of something larger than myself, of helping to bridge the gap between our worlds, it was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. "All right, darling," I said with a grin, the words coming out before I could second-guess myself. Her face lit up with a joy that made the stars seem dim by comparison. In that moment, I knew we were about to embark on something that would change not just our lives, but potentially the fate of both our worlds. The proposal was accepted, the alliance would be sealed, and somehow, against all odds, love had found a way to flourish in the vast emptiness of space. The wedding was unlike anything I'd ever seen, and I suspected it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Zenara Prime had become the center of galactic attention as representatives from countless worlds arrived to witness this unprecedented union between human and Nanari royalty. Zinara customs blended seamlessly with human touches in a ceremony that was both alien and familiar. Holographic flowers floated in midair, their petals shifting through colors that didn't exist in Earth's spectrum. The venue itself was breathtaking, a crystalline amphitheater that seemed to grow from the planet's surface, its walls transparent enough to showcase the swirling nebulae and distant stars that surrounded us. Alien musicians played haunting melodies on instruments I couldn't identify, their music creating harmonies that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond human hearing. Some songs were traditional Nanari compositions that spoke of unity and eternal bonds, while others were human classics that I'd taught Lisura during our time together, an interstellar fusion that perfectly symbolized what we were creating. The guests came from dozens of worlds, representing civilizations I'd only heard about in space or stories. Beings of every conceivable shape and form filled the amphitheater, their various forms of formal wear creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. Some communicated through bioluminescent displays, others through harmonic frequencies, and a few through means I couldn't even begin to understand. I stood next to Lisura, feeling like a fool and a prince at the same time. My formal wear was a hybrid of human and Nanari-designed traditional earth materials woven with Zinara Prime's living fabrics that seemed to respond to my emotional state, shifting subtly in color and texture as my nervousness gave way to awe. Lisura was radiant in her wedding attire, wearing robes that seemed to be cut from the fabric of space itself, embedded with actual stars that pulsed gently with their own light. The constellation patterns on her skin glowed more brightly than I'd ever seen them, as if responding to the joy and significance of the moment. As we exchanged vows, a combination of ancient Nanari pledges and human promises that we'd worked together to create, I found myself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what we were doing. This wasn't just a marriage. It was a statement to the galaxy that understanding and cooperation were possible between any peoples, no matter how different they might seem. "Hey, sweetie," I whispered as we held hands during the ceremony, unable to resist returning to the simple words that had started everything. She blushed, that familiar warmth spreading through her features that had become so dear to me. "Yes, darling," she replied softly, her voice carrying all the love and hope we both felt. And then we both laughed, because somehow, despite the galaxy's chaos, despite the politics and danger and the weight of cosmic significance, we had found something real and genuine and worth fighting for. The marriage wasn't just a political alliance, though it successfully achieved that goal. The union between Earth and the Nanari began a new era of peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding that would influence galactic politics for generations. But more importantly, it was a promise that no matter how vast the universe, connection, love, and laughter could bridge any distance. Together, Lisura and I began working toward lasting peace between our peoples and others, showing that unity was stronger than fear, that understanding was more powerful than prejudice. Our marriage became a symbol of hope for civilizations across the galaxy, proof that the differences between peoples could be sources of strength rather than division. And every day, no matter how serious the challenges we faced or how complex the diplomatic situations we navigated, we kept that playful greeting between us, a reminder of how it all began, how something as simple as a casual "hey sweetie" could change everything. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder of all was finding someone who made you feel at home among the stars.